Hello, you guys. Eilers-Heffner here, Sapphire Ambassador, 5 Levels of Leadership, our last week, this book. And I know sometimes it can be like, wow, that's a lot of information. That's a John Maxwell book. That's a lot of stuff to think about. And yes, and I will have to say the first time that I read some John Maxwell, I was like, holy goodness, right? Like this is a lot. And just from leadership experience, from having this community, the support, personal growth, it allows us to then in the future look at stuff and go, that's really exciting. This is an exciting time. This is an exciting thing to look forward to. These are exciting things that I get to be a part of, that I'm privileged, that I have this team, right? And that's how I feel this time. I'm like, this is so exciting. Like I can see change. I can see and identify things that our team needs to work on, that I need to work on. And that's exciting to be able to identify that and not just be like, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do next? And I want to encourage you that it doesn't matter which end of that spectrum you're on right now. You're on this call, you're listening to this recording, that is going to take you even one step further. And this chapter, or this section, even though it's really talking about level 5 leadership and being the pinnacle, there's a lot of skills in this that we can apply right now, no matter where we're at. And that's also super encouraging because I think it's because of the unique opportunity that we have with Plexus and how we work so closely with people and that relationship that we have with people, that we can look at these skills and these things that he identifies, these traits, and we can apply a lot of it now. Just like those basic laws that he talks about: respect, intuition, timing, legacy, explosive growth, trust your intuition. I loved how he was like, trust your intuition. And it was not a business experience. It was a personal experience. And I had a feeling, I had that intuition a few months ago. And I was like, oh my gosh, am I off base here? Like, what is going on? And then I talked to a friend and she's like, oh no, you have nothing to worry about. And then it came up again. And I was like, I was right. I was so right. And it just was that reminder, like, always trust your gut, always trust your gut, right? And that comes in our leadership, that comes in our personal lives, that comes in everyday life. And it was interesting, like he acknowledges that people have different levels of intuition, but that we all have intuition. And so lean into that a little bit, you guys, and I'm really excited also that as we go into the Strength Finders book and how it will line up with what we're learning here, where he talks about leaning into your strengths, right? So now we're going to learn exactly what our strengths. Maybe we should have done it the opposite way. I don't know, but it doesn't matter. That doesn't even matter, because we can still learn and grow even through all of that, and even through doing the books maybe opposite, right? Or now we can identify a little more clearly our strengths and how that's going to work in our business, because we're doing the Strength Finders next. So there you go. And I love also that he talks about seeing everything in a leadership bias and learning. That also kind of goes with that, trusting your intuition, and that timing can be intuitive as well. So I think sometimes that part of timing and that part of intuition takes a little bit longer to develop in certain circumstances. Some people may be really strong in that in their family life right away. I have children that keep growing, because that happens, right? And I feel like when they were little, my intuition with them was always very spot on. And having children with so many things dynamic in themselves has thrown off my timing, my intuition with them. And I'm having to learn that they're a different person now. They're a different kid. They're a different situation. They're a whole separate ball of wax now. And so learning that. And that means we can also learn intuition, timing in our business too. Intuition and timing in our business. I love that this is our potential to have unlimited leadership potential. Like that is what we're looking at here. We're looking at a huge ripple effect in our lives and our business. It's that legacy. It's leaving behind, what does he say? How we live life. It's not about how we're living our life. It's what we leave behind, right? And that's super encouraging. And I want that to be encouraging to you. Like, this is exciting. This is an opportunity. Like, let's say you go plant a tree in memory of something that's important to you and someone that you lost. That tree is going to be there. And maybe that being able to afford that came from the Plexus opportunity, right? That tree is going to be there for a very, very long time. And it's going to be this constant reminder. And then we think, okay, part of my why with Plexus is X, Y, and Z. It's to support a ministry. It's to support something. It is to donate money. It is to build a Celeste Gwen has this whole like orphanage ministry in Africa, like this whole huge thing, right? That she can financially support through Plexus. When we think of those bigger things and realizing that that is an unlimited potential that we can tap into, that's super inspiring and encouraging, right? And what is it? What is our goal this week to discuss? Well, we want to kind of learn how to lead. And you learn to lead by leading. So if you are a silver and you have 3 people on your team, you're learning to lead by leading those 3 people. And you're saying, what do I need to do? What is it? Where's the video I need to watch? What is it that I'm doing? And then you just keep duplicating that and you do the next step and you do the next step. It's like learning to drive. You cannot learn to drive by reading a book. You can learn about the parts of the car, the road, the signs, the basics, but you have to actually go and do it in order to get better at it and to be proficient in that. Cooking, we can learn a lot about cooking from watching, from reading a cookbook, from watching a YouTube video, from watching our parents cook or grandma cook, right? But until we actually start doing that, we don't actually learn how to do it. And so again, we only have to be one step higher, one step above whomever it is that we're leading right now. And we get to do this one step at a time until we are a pinnacle leader, until we're a level 5, until we have a 6-star diamond business, right? And I was thinking about this today too, like the only way that that won't happen for us is if we quit. That's the only way it won't happen, is if you just quit, if you quit trying, if you quit doing the next step. So we can do this. I love on 257, he talks about identifying potential leaders, figuring out what kind of experiences they need, how we can help provide that in a controlled environment. And then, like, hey, like record a video. Well, guess what? You can endlessly take takes on a video, or you get the video done and you're like, great job. Like, let's post it. But I fumbled. It doesn't matter if you fumbled over 12 words. Like, you guys have listened to me talk a lot and I mess up all of the time, right? But it doesn't mean that you are getting something out of it. It doesn't mean that I'm going to go cry and be completely derailed. It just means that we're all learning and growing, or whatever that is. And so I thought that was really, really cool to just point out, like figuring out what it is that our leaders need, that our people need, and that can be directly applied in our family life. When we see our kids struggling with certain things, like how can we break that task down or that situation down, or put them in a similar situation for practice in a situation over here. And we do that naturally as parents. And I think if we take a step back, we realize that we are capable of doing that in our businesses as well. Okay. And then page 259, where he talks about what we're looking for, what he's looking for in his inner circle, those things: integrity, vision, influence, passion. So look for those people in your life as well that you can pull in to be your business partners too. We always are talking about, well, who do I talk to about the business? Well, everyone. The answer is everyone. But we also want to find people that already demonstrate some stronger leadership skills and care and problem solving and integrity and recruit them on too, And so that I thought was a really good list for lots of reasons. And that did stand out to me, that those are the people that we're looking for to do this business with as well. And just the reminders that as we develop to continue to be coachable and humble, focused, and realizing like what it is that only we can do. And I actually thought about that. I'm like, I don't know that there's really anything in my life that only I can do. So there's certain things maybe at home that I do better, but I don't think there's really anything in my household that only I can do. When I think of my business, there are lots of things that a lot of you can totally do that I do. I don't have to do all the things. None of our leaders have to do all of the things. And I think that's a really good place to stand, because it allows us to pull in leaders to do more and more and share that load. What do they say? Many hands make light work, right? Creating room at the top. We talk about this all of the time. We don't want to be on the stage alone. Plexus will get a bigger stage. They will. I've seen them get a bigger stage. We've seen clips of the first convention, which was like in a hotel conference room kind of thing. And then, a couple years later, it was in a little convention center with a small stage, and then and that stage has grown and grown and grown. They will get a bigger stage. They will make more room for all of the top leaders. So don't let that be a concern. And also, just again, kind of talking about where using our strong leadership platform for a stronger vision, for that legacy that we're going to leave behind. And that comes back to our why. Our why. Maybe our passion is to help elderly people who are kind of homebound or whatever to still have like social outlets and meaningful conversation, and not just go through the get up, get dressed, eat, sit in the chair all day kind of life, helping them to have craft time, social time, whatever that is for them. It doesn't mean that I personally would have to go provide that care for every single person in my organization, right? But it means that I can have that financial and that vision to hire and employ and bring people in to make all of those moving parts happen in order for that mission of mine, that strong heart on mine, to happen. That is not one of my strong missions. That's just an example. But I have lots, and my husband keeps saying, you have to stay singular focused. Like, you have to stay focused. And that was why I underlined that when I wrote it down, like, stay focused on the business, stay focused on raising the family. And I have all these great ideas because I want to impact people in a positive way. Right. And so I'm excited that as my business grows and my finances grow, mean that I can have that impact and hire and donate and make those things happen, but not necessarily be in charge of who's paying the electric bill and who's shoveling the snow and right. So it's pretty cool. And then this stood out to me just as I was reading. It has nothing to do with what I read. It just stood out to me, and I feel I need to share it. So our 6th grade boys in basketball, and there was a game that they played a couple weeks ago, and it was super intense. Like, they won in overtime, and it's like the best team that they're going to play all year kind of thing. And some of these kids were super tall, like 6th, 7th grade boys, taller than me. And even the coaches were getting like kind of heated, and the coaches are never like that on our 6th grade team. They're even keeled. They're telling the kids what to do. They're very focused. They're very flat, not in a bad way. They're just focused and calm and confident and directing the boys. Right. And I was like, wow, even the coaches are getting into this, because of course I am clearly not even keeled during a basketball game. I will tell you that. And so I am like, oh man, even the coaches are getting into it. My husband's like, yeah, but that's not actually good. Like, that's even more distracting to the players, to the kids, when the coaches are getting like emotional about it in a like, oh my gosh, they screwed up kind of way, or, you want to see them do better. Like, hey, get over here and do it like this, that intensity, like, that's not actually good. It's going to throw those kids off a little bit. And that just stood out to me. And that's my husband, because he would be the coach that would be even keeled and calm and cool and collected the entire game. No matter what was happening, it would be fine. I can coach cross country because it's just different. Basketball, no, I'm too emotional. Right. So I just I don't know. I'm throwing that out there because it's like, you know what? We can have things happen in our business left and right. But as leaders, we have to be even keeled and calm and go, okay, well, what's the next step? What's the problem solving? What are we doing next? And not just get thrown in the wind every time something changes. We have to be stronger than that. And I know that a lot of you are and are developing that or seeing that or whatever. I just know that we're all developing in that. And that's just an encouragement. Like, that is our job. Our job is to say, okay, well, yeah, 3 people turned their subs off. What are we going to do? What did you say to them? How could we say something differently? Show me what you're saying. Like, where's the 3-way chat? What's going on in the 3-way chat? Okay, let's review this. Like, we're going to be problem solving. We're not going to flip out and be emotional about it because it doesn't matter. And as a PT, I worked with all kinds of patients and nurses and doctors. I've gotten thrown out of patient rooms because the patient was just not interested. And my job is not to be emotional back at that situation. Mine is to say, okay, is there anything else that I can get you before I leave the room? Okay, have a nice day. Here's your call light. Like, you do have your call light here if you think of something that you need. Like, that's my job, right? It doesn't mean that I don't leave the room and go and have a moment or two, because you all know me and I'm going to have a moment or two sometimes. And then you get back on the track and you're even keeled and you walk into the next room. Hi, Mr. Smith. How are you today? I'm Elizabeth from physical therapy. I'm here because blah, blah, blah. You keep going, right? We can't make every single situation perfect and happy, but we can try to be as even keeled as possible. So anyway, that is what I had. And I had some questions that kind of came up to me when I was thinking about, like, one, examining, like, what is it that you're doing that only you can do in your business, in your home life, in your work life? Because there are a lot of things, I think, that if we think, you know what, there are some other people around this house that could do some other things. That's important to identify, because a lot of our objection is, I need more time. I need more time. I need more time. So I think that's an important question to ask yourself, and you can share if you want. But also, has anyone had a leader in their life that has been influential to them, like some leadership moment that has changed, or maybe you observed a leadership moment and you saw this big change in someone or in a situation, like anything that stood out to you? And then this was really good. Have you ever interviewed a really good, strong leader? And, that is always interesting. I feel like I interview people all of the time. Like, when I'm getting to know someone, like, I want to know you. I want to know all the things. So I feel like I interview people all the time, but tell me what you guys think about those, or anything else that stood out to you in the chapter. No one? No one? I feel like Bueller.
Okay, so since you ended with questions, you got everyone thinking. I've never interviewed a leader before, and I'm trying to think of any specific time where a leader really stood out to me, because we're always surrounded by so many great leaders in our Plexus team. So that's really hard to like pinpoint, because I feel like we see leadership every day through you guys. Whether it's helping us in a 3-way chat, or showing us how to do something, or calling us out with questions, helping us, dig deeper. And those, like we're I think we're just immersed in it. We're surrounded by it, and we're learning from it and growing from it. So those are tough questions to kind of pinpoint. And I've been thinking about it this week. So yeah, I don't know. But this book as a whole has definitely been transforming. Like it kind of became a part of me, like ingrained in me, like how I process things, how I think about things, how I look at myself and where I need to grow and what I need to do, and how I can help others rise up. So this book has definitely transformed my view of leadership, who I am as a leader, and where I want to go as a leader.
I love that. That's encouraging that you're excited and you're like embracing it and like, okay, this is great. We can move on. And I remember certain moments of meeting people in real life, not always Plexus life or even work life, and just thinking, wow, that was really cool. Like, I know our pastor, I've always appreciated our pastor. I started going to this church like over 20 years ago, because it was before I knew my husband. And there were just so many moments where I appreciated his leadership and his strong stance and leadership. And it was church. So pointing that back to a biblical perspective, right? Like leading from that biblical perspective. And there were lots of moments that stood out to me. And there was, Melissa, you'll remember this. They brought in a guy to kind of talk basically about customer service at the hospital. And he did amazing. I was like, now he is a leader. Like, he was relatable and presented stuff very well and gave scenarios that were thought-provoking and played devil's advocate. Like, he just was a very strong leader in exactly what he was doing. And it was really cool. It was really cool to see that. So it's fun. And, meeting different managers at work, you can tell like the managers versus the leaders, even when it's some situations, some corporations, it's tricky because they don't necessarily have a lot of freedom to be a leader, but you can tell when someone is a leader versus just a manager going through the motions and dishing out the next task that everyone needs to do, kind of thing. You can tell a difference in that. And so there are people that have stood out to me over the years in that regard as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I remember, the guy you were talking about, the presentation on leadership, I think it was Alexandra's husband, and just how he was such a strong leader and, different things to think about. And, the questions were very thought provoking, and it took me a minute because I remember interviewing different leaders. I mean, because I'm younger than several of you, just like getting into college, leaving high school, like where I wanted my career path to go, and asking like people how they got there and the steps, and just kind of reading through the book. And now being at a different point of my career and having some more experience, it's made me think more like all of these skill sets of communication, and kind of like in the pyramid in the book from John Wooden, of just all the different tiny pieces that go into leadership, how there's so many different factors and how many different ways to kind of look at them and apply. Like, it would be very interesting to go through and interview someone more on those aspects too, not just like what were the steps that got you there, but now what is the reasoning behind your thought process to get there? How do you manage these situations? How do you raise people up? So they can go through the levels too and help me, raise my leadership lid. So it's very interesting. And I think it's something we should all kind of challenge ourselves to do, to find someone to interview and continue to learn, because it's definitely now on my list to do.
I love that. I love that you dug into the pyramid, because I looked at the pyramid and I'm like, that is a lot of words and a lot of things. And I turned the page. Like, I'll be honest with you. I don't speak pyramid, apparently. I was like, that's a revisit for Elizabeth. And then when you brought it up though, I was like, let me peek at this. Okay, it looks okay. I could do that. I can read that, but at first when I saw it, I'm like, that looks like a lot of stuff. Let me go on to reading my paragraphs here. That looks prettier to me.
That's my brain that likes to break things down and know all the different points. My A student brain.
There you
Got to
go.
cover it all and know all the things.
I love it. I remember having patience. One there was a school administrator, had moved up from teaching to all the way up to administration. And I'm like, so tell me about this and tell me about that. Like I had questions for him because my kids were real little and we're, not real little. They were in school, at least, a couple of them were. And I was like, tell me about this. Tell me about this. Like, how are you leading teachers through all of the crazies? Like the government is saying this, and then they're changing the testing standards. Like, how are you navigating that? Like, I'm curious. Tell me about that. And he's a leader. So I'm like interviewing, like, how do you handle these situations? In the, 40 minutes that I was interacting with him, I had a few questions for him that were not challenging his leadership, like that I didn't trust him, but how is he navigating these challenges as a leader? And it was always encouraging to talk to people like that, to hear that leadership perspective. And, we care about the kids and we talk to the parents, and some things are not a big deal or whatever, it was just really, I don't remember all the details of even what I asked. I just remember always asking questions of people that I found that I could easily from, or gain knowledge from, or that had prestigious leadership roles, right, in society, and just always was curious, like, tell me about that. Tell me what you're doing in that situation. So. Well, it's like 9:30, which would be, we should put this in the world record book that Elizabeth led a book club in 30 minutes. Unless somebody else has something to say.
All right, I'll jump in here. Two leaders that come to mind, first immediately in my work environment. One was a former chief executive officer. He's leading an organization full of engineers, and he kept trying to instill in us, it's an organization of people. You have to take care of your people and mentor those that you're working with. It's not, yes, it's about the plans and the projects and the budgets, but it's a people business, So that was very influential and refreshing from the previous chief executive officer. That was probably a lot more about the budgets. And then my immediate supervisor has been very influential in the fact that anytime he comes into my office, it's always thinking ahead. What's happening 2 months from now, 3 months from now? What's your staff doing for training? What's your staff doing? What projects are they assigned to? Look at your projects that you got coming up. What are the potential problems? So he's really instilled in me to always be looking ahead at what's coming down the road. And then in the Plexus business, Jackie's been a great leader in the fact that she's always giving me, here's the next step. Here's the next thing to do. Come to book club, Monday night team calls. Are you reaching out? What does your IPA look like? So that's been the leaders that have been kind of impactful to me. And then going back to what you said about you can look at and study about cooking, the fact that you can do all that all you want, but if you're not doing it, you just don't know. You just don't know how to cook a turkey unless you've done it. Sure, you can read about it, but there's experiences there that will teach you even more. And that reminded me of a quote I heard of a speaker say, let's see, how did it go? Oh, it was in my mind and then it escapes me. But yeah, experience teaches you so much.
It's well, when you think of your quote, then you can make a post for the team page. And I think that that is a huge appreciation for the CEO to say, reminding a bunch of engineers that these are people we're dealing with, right? Like, It's people, it's people. You know, in the hospital, it's easy. We're dealing with patients all the time. We're dealing with people. It's people, people, people. But when your job is to create a thing that's going to work for the people, you know, it's just that interaction and stuff. That was probably really life-changing for the whole business, or changing for the whole business, to have him in there in that perspective. And I love that, thinking ahead, working ahead, thinking what's next, what's coming up in the future. That's always so important. And the other thing too that I wanted to share with you guys, like these traits, these things, like these are definitely things that your leaders, as we're planning what's happening, like what book are we doing, what call needs to happen, what needs to go up in the team page, like we aren't doing that lightly. And we've talked about this before, but we're definitely like trying to have all of these traits exhibited in the decisions that we're making. And so we appreciate your patience, and we appreciate that, you know, we're all growing and learning too. So that's awesome. And I think too, like, you know, we say, I do it, we do it together, you do it, but I'm right here. Like, that's like the premise of pretty much any new skill that you want to learn. And I think I'm driving my daughter's, who's 14, you didn't put your blinker on to turn that corner. You didn't put your blinker on to turn that corner. You didn't stop for 3 seconds at that stop sign. Like, it's like, oh, now you're actually paying attention to my driving, right? And so it's that buttons up a little bit, like following these rules of the road, because I will have a new driver someday and I need to set a good example. And so it's like, that's a whole new thing. And we learn a lot watching our parents like cook. Like, I always was in the kitchen with my mom, and my Jackson, who likes to cook, the one that my kids have always been with me in the kitchen since they were babies, because I could keep track of them. And so they learned a lot just by watching, but it's really fun to watch Jack learn how to do it and do it on his own, and even learn from mistakes too. So hopefully we won't have those mistakes when we have drivers.
All right, so the quote came back to me, and the first time I heard this kind of blew my mind. You don't know what you don't know. That's why you don't have. If you knew what you knew, you'd have. To know and not to do is really not to know.
Oh,
So if we knew what to do, we'd already be there, right? We'd be plexus diamonds. We'd have the health that we wanted to. And until we do it, we really don't know.
yeah, that's good. I think that warrants a post in the team page so we can see it in writing.
Gotcha. Will do.
I'm glad you remembered it though, so you could share it with us. All right, you guys good? Anybody else?